So last night, Lead Capture IO became one of the first lead capture tools that I know of, at least, that allows you to capture, tag, and store TCPA one-to-one consent and also easily manage the whole workflow with TCPA consent templates. Hey everyone, this is John, founder of Lead Capture IO. In this video, I'm just going to touch on some of the latest updates that we pushed to the Lead Capture IO platform in our last sprint release, specifically focused on our TCPA one-to-one consent updates. This is the first of a multi-part update that we're focused on over the course of, well, that we've been focused on over the course of November into the rest of December. So real quick, we made a number of updates, including adding the headline or name of the lead capture form or funnel that you're working on. So this way you always know what you're working on. We wrapped up some updates for our real estate API integration. This gives you access to a new address autocomplete field and some additional data enrichment that you can collect around a prospect's home. So this is extremely valuable for mortgage, real estate, home services, solar, and basically lead generators in those industries. But the big update that I will spend most of this video focused on is our latest update around the TCPA one-to-one consent workflow. Now, there's a lot of updates coming in regard to TCPA one-to-one consent, and I'm not going to dive into all of that because I've talked about it a ton. But we've been taking a lot of feedback in and thinking about what changes and updates we need to make on the lead capture side to make not only capturing TCPA one-to-one consent easy, but also making it easy to manage the whole workflow and tag consent and send consent into your CRMs, lead distribution tools, to your sales teams, clients, lead buyers, and the list goes on. So it's really so much more than just adding a simple checkbox. You have to have the checkbox. In some cases, you have to have multiple checkboxes per brand. Then you have to think about the UX and UI implications on conversion rate. Then you have to say the right things, so you need templates. And then there's the tagging and storage component to it. Because how do you actually verify that someone consented to give you that information, and how do you pass that off to your clients? So that's really the big problem that we've been tackling with this update. And the other aspect to this is, how do you manage the workflow of all this consent stuff? Because like I said, it's so much more than just a checkbox. You not only need to capture the actual, you not only need to have the ability for someone to check a box or to have specific language, but you need to tag that consent and make it known that you actually have one-to-one consent. So we also had to think about, how do we improve that workflow? Because as we head into January, the workflow for a ton of lead generators, performance-focused marketers, and agencies is definitely going to be changing. So we want to make this process as easy as possible for all of you who are dealing with TCPA one-to-one consent. And I'll also just say that these updates apply to way more than TCPA one-to-one consent. There's so many more consent, I don't know the word, like standards or policies that we need to follow. GDPR is one that comes to mind. So this can also apply to that as well. And as we strive to be the most compliance focused lead capture platform, you'll continue to see us build upon this. So the first update here is a whole new TCPA consent section. So let me just kind of back up. I'll flip this switch off. I'll save and refresh, and then I'm going to refresh the screen just so you can see what this looks like from the start. And before I even dive into this, the other thing I'll say is there's two parts to this. The first part is the TCPA consent workflow and the checkboxes and the tagging and storage system. The second part, and this is what we're working on now, is the ability to dynamically post or call a CRM or lead distribution tool, like ping that tool, capture the brand information, and pull it dynamically back into the lead capture form, then post that information. So that's all coming soon. That's the next big update. And that's what we're focused on, and that will round out our TCPA consent compliance focused features. But let's dive into this first big part, because this is the foundational part that we needed to get into the system, because this really guides the entire workflow, and all the dynamic stuff will feed into this and all be connected. So if you go into the lead capture form, it doesn't really matter what step you're on. You could be on this contact step here, or you could be on a step like this or like this. You're going to see in this step section a new section called TCPA consent. And at some point, this name might change. We might call it compliance, we might call it consent, but for now, we're just calling it TCPA consent. And you'll also notice that there's now a section called add TCPA consent and tagging to this step. And we also have some documentation. If you click into it, you're not going to see any documentation yet because, like I said, we just launched this last night, so we need to work on the documentation. But this video will kind of guide you on the setup. And then if you flip this switch, you're now going to see some more options. So there's this TCPA consent required checkbox. I'll dive into all of that. Webhooks to post all this information into your CRMs and lead distribution tools, because obviously it's so much more than capturing the consent. You need to get it out to your clients, buyers, sales teams, and so on. And then we also used to have a real basic TCPA consent section. This is not depreciated. Do not use this. We'll probably remove it at some point. But for now, we're just tagging that as depreciated. So if you come here to the TCPA one-to-one consent section, you can now expand this. And this gives you a whole bunch of new features. And the main thing to call out here is this TCPA template. So currently, we now have 2 templates for you to choose from. There's TCPA consent if you have to capture consent on behalf of multiple companies, or another way to phrase that is multiple buyers. If you choose this, then it's automatically going to insert this template into the lead capture form. And you'll see it right here. Currently, it's appearing as white, so you just have to change the text color. You can make it whatever color you want. In this case, I'll just make it black. And there is the text right there. So as you can see here, we are providing you with a pre-written template, and all you have to do is copy this template in. And you can come in and modify it too, so you can type into this field. You can add custom HTML. So you'll see here, if you need to add line breaks, you can just come in here and add BR. Eventually, we'll probably integrate something like a ChatGPT in here, so you could just have it write code for you. I think that would be pretty cool. And there's that line break that I just added. So you'll see here that there's 2 templates. The first is if you're capturing TCPA consent for multiple companies. The second is if you're capturing TCPA consent for just a single company. So there's that template. It's a little bit different, but like I said, you can come in and modify it. In the near future, you will be able to add your own templates here. So if you have a very specific template that you need to use per buyer or across different lead capture forms and funnels, you'll be able to add custom templates. We'll also have more templates that expand beyond just TCPA, like maybe GDPR optimized templates. Because like I said in the beginning of this video, there are very specific things you need to say. Specific things, I don't know if I said that right, that you need to say in your lead capture forms to be compliant with TCPA. And also the way you say things can help impact conversion, especially for just general disclaimer text or GDPR text. So it's something we're really thinking about. How do we help you improve the copy and conversion while staying compliant? Now, the TCPA single company consent, pretty self-explanatory. It's just a section to add the text. But let's go back to the TCPA multiple companies, because this is where things get a little more complicated, since in this particular case, you have to capture consent on behalf of multiple brands. So as you can see here, we have the template, and we have some placeholder text where you see these little brackets you just have to insert. Actually, let me go to a different step here. So the reason why I'm going back to the contact step is because with TCPA consent, you need to be collecting it or capturing it on a field that has the phone field. So that's why I'll add it here. So we'll flip it on. We'll go to TCPA consent required. And then I'll choose multiple companies. There's the text. Now, as I was saying, you can come in here and where you see the brackets, you can just highlight these and then insert. It needs to match the CTA of the button. So get my rate in this particular case. Then you could add in, if you're using automated technology, you would just keep that there. If you're using SMS, MMS message, if you're not using this, just remove it. And then you would just click save in the upper right hand corner, and that will save it for you. You can add links and all that type of stuff. We have the syntax here that you need to use to add hyperlinks, and they'll open in new tabs. Now, you might be wondering, okay, this is great. I see the text here, but how do I actually get those checkboxes in? Because as part of the new TCPA consent legislation, someone actually needs to check a box for each brand. So what you could do here is just type in your company name. So we'll call this uh, brand 1, and there's the checkbox. Brand 2, so let's say you have 3 buyers. Let's say you're a lead seller or lead generator, or you're an agency and you have 3 clients or buyers. You would just type the brands in here, and you can keep going down the list. And as you can see, the brands are now at the top. And all someone has to do is come in and check the box. And then I'll show you the tagging system. That's the second part to this in a moment here. But I want to show you the layout as well, because currently this is formatted to show the brands as they go across. If we add a 4th brand, it might appear to the right, or it will start to appear in multiple rows kind of spanning down. But you can come in here now and play around with the styling, how you want it to appear. So let's say you want the checkbox placement, rather than being horizontal, to be vertical. Just choose vertical. Now you have each of these brands appearing like this. We also have this select feature that makes it possible for your user, your lead, to select all. And you'll see me trying to choose that here. And I just remembered I'm not actually in a real-time preview. I'll show you how that works when we actually go through a live lead capture form. So you can choose whether it displays horizontal or vertical, and you can also choose whether this appears over the submit button or below. Let's just go with under the button, and there it is. I prefer it to be underneath of the button because I feel like that's a lot to have above the get my rate button. And this is a way that I think most people are currently handling it. So that's how you'll see the TCPA consent showing up, and you have control over that. You can choose whether you want it to be left aligned, right aligned, and the list goes on. You can even choose font weight, font size we covered. You can adjust the text size, and you can also adjust the text box size. So if you want the text box to be larger, you can make the text boxes larger, just like that. The next thing to note before we go into a live demo of this is webhooks. So as I mentioned, capturing consent is so much more than just having a checkbox. Most form tools have the ability to add a checkbox. We even had this before we did all this work. We called it our GDPR checkbox, and you can also add that as well. So if I just come here, hold on, let me get all this back. So just to show you, we still have what we call the GDPR checkbox. I don't know if we'll always call it GDPR. We might just call it checkbox, but you'll see it there. Now, I would recommend, if you're looking to do anything with consent, just sticking with the TCPA consent section, even if it's not true TCPA consent, because I'll show you why in a second. And if you have the GDPR text box section, or if you have text in that, move it up to the TCPA section. We also had a lot of you in the past have been adding your TCPA consent text to the additional text section. You can still do that. Nothing has changed there. But again, there's reasons why I would now move this up into this section here. And it deals with how we tag leads as whether or not they provided consent or not. So now the next thing that I'll show you here is the webhooks. So when someone checks the box for consent, chances are you need to pass that consent into your CRM or lead distribution tool. And you can easily now do that by going to TCPA webhooks, expanding this section here, and then choosing whatever webhook field you have. So your CRM or lead distribution tool will provide you with your webhook field, or you will need to set it yourself. So let's say you're using something like the webhook, like the Lead Capture IO webhook, to post leads into a system like a Go High Level or LeadBite or Lead Prosper or Leadspedia or some other CRM. You would get the webhook field name or set it in that system, and then just add your field name. So maybe it's like consent. And then this will pass over a string of information that includes whether or not consent was provided. So basically whether or not someone checked the box for company A, company B, or company C. If you're using single consent, then it won't capture checking the box. It'll just say whether or not that person provided consent. So that's how you go about setting up the template and then also posting it into your system with the webhook. Now, the next thing that I'll show you, let me move this to the bottom real quick. Now, the next thing that I'll show you is the live demo. Then I'm going to show you how we tag this information. So let's go to a landing page. We'll just use this one. So this is a real basic landing page that I have, and here's a very simple test lead capture form that I put together last night during our QA process. If you missed our last release around car make model integration, remember we have a car make and model integration and dynamic drop downs where if you add in the car make and it will dynamically update to model. We also have a car year field that dynamically updates as well. And here's that checkbox. So you'll see the checkboxes are a little bit big because I was playing around with the font size, but all of this is easy to adjust. So you would just put your name in here. And then a phone number. And then you have a number of options. So if you're using the checkbox option for multiple companies, you can allow your prospect to either select each box like that, or they could choose select all, and all are selected. Now, another thing we'll probably have in the future is the ability for you to upload logos of each company, and this could potentially help with conversion, so that will probably be coming soon. But for now, you can at least do the checkboxes. And let's just choose company B here, because I want to show you how the tagging system works next. So I'll click Get My Rate, and then let's go back into lead capture. We'll just go back and refresh. So here's the lead detail section that is all of the analytics and the leads as they come in. And here's that lead that I just submitted. You'll see December 11th, 6:33 a.m., bright and early before my kids wake up. And then here is a new column inside of Lead Capture IO that shows TCPA consent confirmation. And you'll see that this lead is tagged as confirmed consent. So the logic here basically says if you get confirmed consent for at least one brand, so if you're using a template that has multiple companies with multiple checkboxes, someone just needs to check one box. Or if you're using single consent where there's no checkboxes, then that's obviously just one brand. If you get consent for just one brand, then mark it as confirmed consent. If nobody checks a box, or if you do not have the TCPA consent template in there and the form is submitted without that information, it just shows up as unconfirmed. And then you're probably wondering, well, what about the case where, like we just had, where there's multiple checkboxes and someone doesn't check a box? And I'll show you that in a second. This is just like a high level view of, did you at least get consent for at least one of your brands, or at least your brand? You can drill into that lead then. And now there's this new section called TCPA consent, and you'll see each company here. So company ABC, unconfirmed, confirmed, unconfirmed. So now with a quick glance, you can know what companies have received TCPA consent. And if you're using the single company consent where there's no checkboxes, it will just show up as either confirmed or unconfirmed for that single company. This is extremely valuable information to be able to pass to your clients, lead buyers, to sales teams, because it highlights whether or not you actually have confirmed consent. And the best part is we're tagging it here and storing it. And for those of you who don't know, Lead Capture IO will store your leads for up to 5 years. And this ties into the TCPA consent litigation statute of limitations, I think. I'm not sure about the right way to say that, but we store your leads so you'll always will have this record of consent. So coming in the near future, we'll be doing some things possibly with blockchain to add unique IDs to this as well, just so that way you can say it's not only verifiable, but it can't be changed because it will be stored in the blockchain where it can't be tampered with. And it can't be tampered with here, but it'll be an extra layer of security and verification that lead buyers and clients will love. So this information is really it's not only an easier way to capture consent, manage the workflow, and tag consent, but it will also help increase the value of your leads just to have these tags applied. And then, as I mentioned, the leads that get sent out via the webhook or through Zapier or into your integrations and lead distribution tools will have all of this information attached to the payload, and you can easily take this information, ingest it into those tools, tag your leads, and then send them off to wherever they need to go with their tags for whether or not consent has been applied or not. One other thing I'll show you is the lead notification as well. So if you're using our email notifications, here's an example. If we go down, we are now also adding this information to the lead notification. So if you're sending lead notifications to buyers, clients, or your team, and you have multiple buyers, or multiple brands and those checkboxes, they can actually see, did someone provide consent for company A, B, C, and so on? Or did someone provide consent for the single company? And if you're using our text messages, our text notification system, that information goes through in the text, or you could choose whether or not you want it to go through in the text. So we're capturing that information and sending it to everywhere that it needs to go. Now, like I said, there's so much more than just a checkbox. If you're using a system or a platform that's saying, oh, just go in and set up a checkbox and you're covered, I would take that with a grain of salt because there's so much more to it. You have to get the wording right, you have to have the placement right. There's so much to it and so many more updates that we need to continue making to ensure compliance. And then you also need to be able to store and tag your leads. And that's why we built out this entire process. Up next is dynamic consent. Like I mentioned, it's the ability to ping a CRM or lead distribution tool with a piece of data like state, city, zip code, and then pull that information back into a specific step. In this case, it will be like in the checkbox, or within the text, the TCPA consent text that you see here, to be able to pull that in. And then that will really round out the features where we'll not only have this workflow and system to add these checkboxes, but you also will be able to pull that information in and also get the benefits of the tagging as well. So this is included currently in all plans. If you are a current lead capture user, you can come right in here and you have access to this feature today. We will be getting the documentation together this week. If you run into any problems or need any updates to this, just let us know. Like I mentioned, we'll probably have logos coming out next. Then once we get through dynamic consent, we'll probably be doing some interesting things on the blockchain side with this to continue making this the best that it can be. So thank you. If you have any feature ideas or recommendations to help improve this, just let me know.